All right, welcome back to another episode of Grow Your Grass Off. We have a fabulous guest today. Her name is Terra Osman. She created an app called Farmish, which is a Craigslist type app for gardeners, farmers, everybody. So welcome to our show. We would love to have you tell us about yourself, how this got started, and where you're at.
Thank you. Well, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 9 years. And so during that time, I think like a lot of parents, modern parents, I see a lot of people doing the same thing, looking into gardening and trying to teach our kids where food comes from. I think there's just so much evidence that we've gotten far away from that. So that was one of the hobbies that kind of wove into our family culture. And specifically when COVID started, also, I think like a lot of people, I started looking around and thinking like, what can I control? I see empty shelves at the grocery store. I'm seeing all this panic and talk about global supply chain. And I'm seeing that, just in people I'm talking to and friends and family. And I think I can grow more food. That's something I can do. So we have a third of an acre in a suburb. We got chickens. We really expanded our garden out. I think I counted, we grew about 2,500 pounds of food in 2020. So we grew corn and squash, lots of things for fresh eating. Coincidentally, the year before I had started canning because I really like pickles and I like fancy jams. And I thought, okay, this sounds fun. And it really came in handy when I all of a sudden had all this produce. So I've also been a freelance web developer. And around that time, I saw a huge uptick in conversation about trying to buy directly from farmers around. And I had done that for years because I'd actually been a vegetarian for 17 years. And once I started eating meat again, about 6 years ago, I only ate meat from local farms. I thought, okay, if I'm going to do this, I want to make sure, it kind of aligns with my values and I can feel good about it in a lot of different ways. So but what I saw in Facebook groups and conversation is that there were a lot of people who started producing more, who all of a sudden had feeder pigs, who were growing hundreds of meat chickens, and they were trying to make connections with people saying, yeah, we have X amount of things available, or, I'm an apple grower and we have all these seconds that we can't grow, sell commercially. And it just took a lot of steps to make those connections with people. And as a web developer, I thought, okay, well, maybe I can help someone with a website, that sounds like a way to get their information out there. But as a developer and a digital marketer, I also know that costs money to bring people to the website. There are a lot of different factors, and these producers, they, growing food for their families, they don't want to be marketers necessarily. So, I thought, okay, well, maybe, this is exactly how I'd want to try to find food. Like, Facebook Marketplace isn't showing me where people are nearby. And so I started thinking about how I wanted to connect with farmers and try to find some of these early stage growers, not necessarily people at the farmers market. And so I came up with Farmish and I entered it in a local business competition and it lost. But I thought that I could figure this out. So it lost. Yeah. And so I thought, okay, maybe I'll hire a web app developer. And so I kind of started looking around and that didn't work out. And so last March, I built and launched Farmish on March 15th. And we had about 10,000 users within the first few weeks. And then we had 100,000 within the first 2 months. And it's just kind of exploded from there. I got connected with a development team later in the summer because it's not typical for an app to get that many users. And when it does, it usually costs a lot of development time and money, which I didn't have. So I was able to get connected with a development team who really liked, what they saw and kind of was interested in the mission. And so we've revamped the app and we're continuing to grow.
Wow, that's crazy.
Cool. Yeah, that's so cool. So, do you feel that tell us a little bit about the new marketplace membership that you just kind of launched as well?
Yeah, we, of course, with this many users and really any business venture, the question is always monetization, is how are you going to make money? And we've tested ads, we tested display ads because I didn't necessarily want to charge people for for being able to create a listing and be on a map and build that connection, because so many of our users are taking that early step, that first step of, can I make money doing this, as a side hustle. And so I didn't want to jump in and have to charge people for that. So we tested ads. That didn't feel right. It didn't bring value to the users, I felt. I think there's a way that we can do that in the future that brings value, but it just didn't feel right at that point. And so, plus it takes a lot of time and resources to spend time selling and maintaining those. I started thinking about how I want, and this was part of the plan very early on. I actually launched something similar for about 10 days last spring. And then the app blew up and it was crashing. And I just, I'm not going to charge people for this right now. So, but this really, I think about our users, and 85% of our users are women. And in conversations with them, they're parents. They are growing food for their families. They're not thinking like, I'm going to grow this so I can spend all day Saturday at a farmer's market. That's just, this is secondary to them. Like I said, it's really branching into a side hustle. And so I want to do for farmers and gardeners what Etsy has done for crafters, and build that path from first sale to side hustle to paid hobby to scaling a business, if that's where they want to go. And I think in this industry, it's important not to do that by putting all of your eggs in one basket for that transaction fee, because I want people to find value in it outside of, do they offer the cheapest way for me to sell online? As an e-commerce platform. So the market membership is meant to allow people to diversify their income with events, with workshops, and we are building out the profile so it acts a lot more like a website.
Like a hub.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, so like a website where they can share content, they can link to their YouTube and display information, almost like what Facebook pages used to do back when they were actually useful,
Exactly.
But really be geographically focused. So unlike Facebook pages, you're not competing with all the noise all over the place. It's really just within your community. And so this will open up, that a little bit of a content side to almost like a website, like I said, to display what you're about, host events, and we're going to start off with like a simple RSVP feature, and then in-app transactions, and then also being able to sell and like more in like a handmade space. So a little bit more like Etsy, but really narrowly focused on handmade in the local food space, and not get into like print on demand or antiques or a lot of those things that like Etsy has branched into, but really focus on, if you are growing and producing food and kind of living this homestead life, what other ways can you make money while really serving the people around you, because it's what people want. So we are going to launch the first phase of that probably around April, and it'll be $29 a month or $299 a year. And then we're opening up a referral program with that also.
Wow. So I could, everything that I've canned and all my jams and pickles, I could post on there, hey, I'm on the corner, not the corner, but in my neighborhood, my little stand, everybody come by who's local. Okay. That's really cool. That's very neat.
Yeah. So, as long as, we're really taking an approach, like all the local regional laws are different. So if you can legally sell cottage food in your area, of course, go ahead and display that, because people want to, I've talked to thousands of people and they're like, oh, that'd be so cool, because the only time I ever see that is at the farmer's market, and it's busy and it's only on Saturday mornings. And so really being able to connect people in a way that fits with what they're already doing.
That's a question, maybe a good segue for me. I was going to ask, like you just mentioned, the laws, because it's kind of like you can't sell raw milk, or you can't do some of these things that we really want to do. And you just kind of mentioned it, maybe that it's going to have to just be super locally specific, right?
Yeah. And, specific to raw milk in Michigan, we can be in a herd share. So we have herd shares, several, lots of them listed on the app. And before Farmish, I had a really hard time finding a herd share, because it was almost like you could code word kind of message it, mention it in a Facebook group. And it was always word of mouth. And it was like, oh, there's an Amish family over here, and so being able to make those legal connections are good. But also when we talk about the policies and the laws, some of that depends on if it's an in-app transaction also. So also in Michigan, eggs, you can sell basically as many as you want in person. They recommend you label them. Like it's just a suggestion. But as soon as it's an online transaction, like you add to cart, pay for them and buy them, there's an egg sheller's license. There's a whole, you have to wash them and sort them. And there's a whole other extra step. And I found that to be true in a lot of different ways all over the country. And so that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to lead with an e-commerce type platform, because I knew it would leave a lot of people out of the space. So yeah, people are responsible for knowing their local laws. And most people who are already making money do that, if you're making money and trying to get the word out that, hey, this is part of, I'm kind of have a little business here. Most people have already looked into that because they don't want to, put themselves in a risk, especially if they're making a lot and they have a good supply pipeline going. Most people are aware of what's allowed near them. So
yeah.
Wow. That is just amazing. I'm going to go get the app like right away. I'm so excited. So, I've been a market farmer for quite some time. And before I started going to farmers markets, and this was before I moved, when I was still in California, I was looking for things like this because I didn't want to go to farmers markets necessarily. As it turns out, that was actually really good for me. Farmers markets were where it was at for what I was doing, but I was kind of resistant to it at first. And then there was this app that came out called Vendor.
Yep.
And I'm like, it sounds, very similar to what you're doing. And this is great. And I signed up for it right away. And, 2 years go by and there's nobody on it. So, I had all my stuff listed, but nobody went on to buy anything. Never got any contact from them. And I just deleted the app and forgot about it. So my question is like, what made Farmish so successful when others that have done this before have completely failed?
Was Vendor around probably 2015? Maybe 2017?
2017, I think.
Yeah. So around that time, there were quite a few West Coast specifically apps like that had popped up. There was, New York Times, an article, some big media outlets were talking about like a resurgence of local food. And I think some of that momentum at the time, just knowing where I was at the time and reading some of these stories from a few years ago, it seemed like a novelty. Like it was cool. Of course, like there are a lot of benefits to local food, but it wasn't like the motivations didn't feel as urgent at the time to connect with a local producer. Farmers markets are awesome. You can get the best food. You can meet people, there are a lot of different ways to connect with local food, the farm to table restaurants. There are lots of delivery services, but to me, it felt like a novelty. And I think post 2020, it feels like a necessity, and not just in the immediate term, like, oh, these shelves are empty, I'm going to fill my freezer, but because it wasn't just one factor in 2020, we're seeing dozens of different things that continue to weaken the systems that we thought were strong in there. And so I think along with those motivations to get closer to your food source, people have made lifestyle changes. They bought more property. They've expanded their gardens. They bought freezers for the first time, where 4 years ago, they might have considered someone like that a hoarder. And now, and now they have a whole farm animal in their freezer, so I think that novelty is still there because local food is, I think it's better. And I live in Michigan. So if you're in California, probably a lot of the same thing, like the glory of peak season when things are available, people not even interested in food love peak season and roadside stands and farmers markets. It's just a whole culture of where you live, depending on what you grow. And it just feels like part of summer, but now it feels like a necessity that I want to secure for my family and buy what's in season and know where to buy it and store it some way, and not just let the season go by without participating in a local food system. So I get that question a lot, because especially from like potential investors. I've had a lot, and people just don't always understand the mindset. They think local food, they think, well, I bought some meat from Whole Foods that said local on the sticker, or so I just think for a certain group, a big group of our population, it just feels more essential than it has ever before.
Yeah. I think it's needed too. It was, it was a fun thing maybe before, and now it's definitely a necessity. It's amazing. I've had, I don't know, over 6 people reach out to me on the app, just
awesome.
friends. Yeah. And I've got a repeat customer. So
cool.
I love it. It's cool. I just meet her up at the local school, and she brings her carton back to me, and I just refill it. So it's so fun, and it's connecting with the community, and she can tell her friend, and her friend can tell her friend, and it's a great way to connect locally. And it's different than OfferUp. It's different than garage sale or any of those things. Craigslist, it's completely different than that. So,
and even there are quite a few. I mean, there are 4 that I can think of, like e-commerce focused, branded as local food, helping you buy direct from the producer. And I think even that's different, because when you can just place an order and buy from someone, maybe 300 miles away, even though it's direct from the producer, and you can feel good about that, it's not really the same as meeting someone in your community and feeling like you have a connection, even surface level of knowing where it was grown and where it came from, but even deeper than that, feeling like you have a relationship with someone that you can go to, and that who produces food, and that you can support them, put money directly in their pocket.
Yeah. It's amazing. I love it. I share it with everyone. I've shared it with them. I'm like, she's going to come on our show. So, and I love that you're starting the new marketplace too, membership, because that's going to be that's a good thing. So I'm definitely going to sign up for that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
I think I was going to add one more thing there, in terms of kind of how it dovetails with what we're doing. I feel like it's what our mission really kind of is to help those people who are motivated, who are wanting to do basically what you're attracting, right? Is to connect not only to their own food, but to the community. Because like you're saying, I feel like there's so many added bonuses. You get extra nutrition, you get to know your supply lines, you get to know those people in your neighborhood or in your community. And then your kids, like you mentioned earlier, you get that connection with them, and they get to realize their food, where does it come from, all those great things. So I feel like we're really hitting on the same, nail, so to speak. It's kind of like, this is something that we're totally passionate about in terms of the education and supporting those people. And it's so great to know that, you've got this app out there that we can sort of push and funnel people to, because I think I've always looked at Craigslist and seen there's an ability to engage with the community, but it's always missing something. It's always like, I don't know, it doesn't really sink in enough to where maybe people really trust it. So I think that's a really cool barrier to break through, is that you're able to, like you said, people are buying in, they're obviously trusting it, and they say, okay, I can rely on this. But we're really, I guess the underlying point for me is just, it seems like it's a swell of some kind that we're ready for, and that we can get behind it. And it's like, we have the technology and everything. We don't need necessarily crypto to do it, but I feel like that's really a success of what you've done, is to put all that kind of together in a nice package.
Yeah. Thank you. We've had some concerns. People say like, well, I don't really want what I grow out there. Like, I don't want everyone to know, and that's fine. Then you're probably also not the type of person who would like scale a business or look for expanding what you have available. And so we've put some steps in place. Like, you can put we don't check your email address and see if it's your name associated with it. Like, I met someone all summer at the library park. Like, she doesn't have people come to her house. She puts her location on the map as the library park, and she had cottage food, and she was growing a certain type of tomato that we weren't growing. And so I feel like there are just a lot of different layers of how people can use it to connect in their own way and when works for them. And I think that's something that like an e-commerce first platform wouldn't allow for.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Can you sell live plants?
Yeah, plants, animals.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're starting to see some seedlings pop up, especially in the South. We actually have a huge chunk of our user base in Texas. I don't know where you all are.
I was wondering where your big user base was. Is it Texas?
Yeah, we have a huge, I mean, Texas is huge, obviously, and they have a longer growing season.
Yeah.
So Texas is probably number one as far as number of people per state. But we have them pretty spread out, like, and a lot, like you said, when you share it with people. So early on, I would see all of a sudden we'd have 30 listings in Salt Lake City. I was like, whoa, because someone posted about it in a Facebook group. So we have pockets of people all over. When I talk about it on TikTok, people be like, wow, you even have users near me, and I live in like a random rural area. So, we have them all over every state and in Canada.
Oh.
Cool. To answer your question, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
I'm in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, nice.
I'm in Seattle, Washington, and Brandon's in.
I'm in Costa Rica. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
We all have different grow seasons as well.
Yeah, my sister's in Miami, and I have another sister in Las Vegas. So she's not growing anything, obviously. But yeah, and that's what a lot of questions too early on was how, with such seasonal items, how are you going to get people to stay on the app and have it be valuable? And the answer to that is number one, some things are available all year, especially if you produce meat, if you, we've had people even indoor plants and elderberry cuttings, not necessarily in peak season. Then of course, eggs and honey and maple syrup. And then just looking at the geography of the country, like what people grow year round and what's available, and indoor growing is really taking off. So I see a lot of positive trends in local food it's just going to build connections all year round for people.
So is this the kind of thing that, like, if someone were to travel to a different part of the country, they can then source local food when they get there?
Yeah, we've had a few like van life type people, like in a cool way, not like,
right.
But yeah, people who said, I had someone the other day say that they sold eggs to a family that travels, and they use Farmish at different locations to find eggs specifically. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
I traveled to Arizona about, 4 or 5 years ago, because I was just in the Phoenix area, and I knew that they can grow all this tropical fruits, and so I wanted like guava fruit from like a local farmer. And there is this site, and I cannot think of it right now. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And you connect with a local farmer, and then they email you, and then they have like a pickup there. And it was it was very clunky, but I was determined to get it, and I got some stinkiest, most delicious guavas I've ever had.
Awesome.
I got some mulberries,
things
that I knew that, like, at that time of year they would have there, just because I'm super into those kind of things.
Yep.
So that was the reason I was thinking, like, oh, if I want to travel like someplace, I want to get locally grown stuff in season there that maybe I couldn't get, like living
just type in
exactly.
winter.
I don't know if you're familiar with northern Michigan at all, but it's about 3 hours north of me is wine country. But it's also where they grow a lot of cherries, a lot of unique things like hops, and just it hasn't been commercialized a whole lot. So it's roadside stands with small painted signs that take you on the off-road. And that was part of my intent. Starting Farmish, I was like, wouldn't this be amazing if we could go up north and just follow all these different, farm stands and find them right on a map. And when we're up there in the summer to get fresh cherries and just things that would be more difficult to get, to have to go to a farmer's market or some little ritzy store.
Some expensive store.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, this is just absolutely amazing. I'm so excited to hear. I'm going to go get the app right now. I'm going to start using it. This is something that I've been wanting to see for a long, long time. And congratulations on doing it successfully.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Thank you.
shrinking the supply chain.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to the membership. I mean, that for one, it will help keep us sustainable as a business, but
Yeah.
also I think it's something as a user I really want to see. I really want to support farms in different ways. And I think, you know, going into the growing season, people are thinking about that too. Like, how can we make money off, you know, these investments that we put into our family and our property and what we're doing. And so I'm really happy that Farmish can help people do that.
Yeah. It's all perfect timing too. Like you're right before spring and you've had such success in the last few months. So congratulations. We're so excited that you came on and took the time to share with us.
Thank you.
All about your new ventures. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So our mission is we want to help people grow food. So a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly aligned. And so many people are ready for that. Like you said, I think these are lifestyle changes that we're going to see for generations, and not in a bad way, not like in a bury your money in the backyard, you know, but, you know, like our grandparents obviously had changes, you know, they made lifestyle changes and they weren't always positive, but I think this is really going to be a positive lifestyle change to change family cultures for generations.
Absolutely.
Know your
thank
neighbors.
you again.
Yeah. Thank you. All
right.
Have a good day.
So much.
We'll see you later.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
Well, that was another amazing episode. I know I'm going to go get the Farmish app right now. I can hardly think about anything else. Honestly, I'm so excited about it. But until then, grow your grass off. Ian, tell them what to do.
You know what to do. Hit a like, hit the subscribe, and smash that notification bell.